What is up, everybody? Welcome to Sitting with Sean, episode number 34. Yeah, I've been doing this 34 episodes already. It's crazy. It's wild. I have a very special guest today, and I say very special guest because she is very special. Nicki. I promised Nicki that I wouldn't say her last name because I didn't want to butcher it and I didn't want to mess it up. So, Nicki, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. My name is Nicki from Ingen Schenau. I'm originally Dutch. I'm back in Amsterdam after having lived 10 years in Tokyo, where I founded my own company, Tokyo Tours. And I haven't personally struggled with addiction, but I've had some family members that did. So I would very much like to share with you my struggles with handling people with addiction and also mental health issues I faced in the past couple of years.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm excited to have you. I really am. When you said CTE, like the time zone, I was like, okay, she's in Central America. And then you were like, yeah, I'm in Amsterdam. I was like, oh, whoa. All right, that changes everything.
Yeah, sure.
That changes everything. And it's super cool because well, you're my first guest from Europe.
Yay.
Yay. Yeah, so you're a very busy woman and you spoke a little bit about some of the things that you do. You talked about some of the businesses that you've created. What are some of those businesses and what do they look like?
Well, when I went to Japan, I had this preconception like, oh, I have a bachelor's degree, I have lots of work experience, so it would be easy for me to find a job. And then I came there and everyone was like, oh, so you're fluent in Japanese, right? And I was like, no. So they were like, oh, well, yeah, we'll call you. So after a couple of months of that, I thought, okay, I'll just quickly learn Japanese, and then like 6 months or a year in, I will be fluent and I will be able to get a job. So I started learning Japanese, and then 2 years in, I still wasn't fluent. So then I decided, like, oh, I'll just start my own business, and I started doing guided tours first by myself, and then later I would get requests by travel agents like, oh, do you know someone here? Do you know someone here? So I started expanding my network, and now I have about 50 guides spread out over Japan. They're all locals, so they know the area well. They can speak the language, and usually they can speak one or two other languages, like obviously Dutch, because I have a
Yeah.
lot of Dutch clients, but also French or German or Portuguese or Spanish. Um, and then over the years I got more and more requests from businesses like, oh, we want to explore the Japanese market, can you do that too, can you help, do you have local support, can someone translate, can someone interpret? So this year I decided to separate the two businesses and create a special entity specifically for this market exploration part and consultancy. So I still have Tokyo tours, which was basically dead because of COVID. So the border with Japan closed, and we couldn't receive any more tourists. 2020 was supposed to be the best year ever because of the Olympics. And then my business partner had a nervous breakdown because just raining cancellations, and everyone was like, oh no, we can't go to Tokyo anymore. And yeah, I mean, she couldn't handle it anymore, and she was like, I don't know how long this will take, will it ever become better again? And but I kept believing in my own success, and I said, you just step out of the business completely for however long you need. I'm going to figure it out, I'm going to handle everything, and it'll be fine. So, fortunately, last October, the border with Japan opened up again, so tourists can come back. So, fortunately, the we've got a lot of bookings for 2023 already, and slowly expanding our guide network, because obviously we had to say goodbye to some of our guides because they couldn't support themselves anymore and had to move back to their home country. So yeah, I'm busy working on that, but unfortunately, we're not at the level where I can support myself financially just doing that. So I still have my day job as a marketeer for an IT company. So yeah, that's basically what I do.
You are a very busy woman.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah,
But I'm glad to have time for you, Sean.
well, you know, I am blessed, and I feel completely privileged and honored to have you on the show, and just take a little bit of snippet of time out of your day. So I want to thank you for being a part of the show.
Yeah,
First
sure,
off,
no problem.
that's awesome. How hard was it to separate, you know, the two businesses, you know, and say, okay, this is what I want to do. This is, you know, I want to have this business and then this business. Was that a hard decision for you to make, or was it kind of like, all right, that's easy?
No, I mean, mm, because in the Netherlands, as long as your business activities are kind of similar, you only need one registration at the Chamber of Commerce, and you can just give them the information like, oh, I'm also doing this now. So, depending on how specific you are with your description of what services you offer, you just need to update your new website and send them the link, and then they'll add it to your registration. So it was pretty easy for me to do because I already have my tax number and my registration done because of the other business. So all of it, all that I have to do is to build the website and start promoting it when everything is done. So yeah, it's going well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And what is life like in the Netherlands? I mean, for somebody, and I'm gonna use the word ignorant in a sense of like uneducated. Um, for somebody that's uneducated like myself, or ignorant to myself, or like myself, when it comes to life in the Netherlands, what is it like?
In general, pretty good, I think. I mean, the Netherlands is a very social country. So I know that's considered a bad word in the United States. You don't want to have anything to do with socialism. But for us, it actually works. We pay quite a lot in taxes. The tax brackets are different. So uh, you will start paying a higher tax rate much earlier than compared to the United States. But on the other hand, you also get a lot in return. So you'll receive a pension from the government. On and on top of that, you probably have a pension plan with your employer. So you will receive two kinds of pensions, so that's taken care of, and it's mandatory to have health benefits. So no matter what kind of job you do, you have that. And there's all kinds of subsidies. So for childcare and for just having a child, you'll get subsidies. And also for if you want to put them in daycare, you get subsidies. And if you cannot pay your rent, you get subsidies. And if you cannot pay your health benefits, you get subsidies. So although we pay a lot of taxes, depending on how much you earn, you also get a lot in return. So I feel it's a good system, and keeps everyone happy. Plus, work-life balance is very important in the United States. Yeah, in the United States maybe also,
No,
but
it's not.
yeah,
No, it's not.
especially especially here, like you'll get 3 months off if you're pregnant. So at the end of your pregnancy, you'll get, usually they'll take the last month off and then 2 more months to take care of the kid. And mandatory, you'll get at least 5 weeks of paid holiday in the Netherlands. So usually people just save up the holidays and then take that after the pregnancy leave. And some companies offer even more days off on top of the mandatory 25 days.
Wow.
Um, and what else? Oh, yeah, pretty much at least like 60 to 70% of people here work part time. So having a full time job, like 40 hours a week, is quite uncommon. So most people work 38 hours or 36 hours or 32 hours or even less. So yeah, and if you are a dad, you'll get what we call Daddy's Day. So for a certain length of time, you can take time off, and your employer is forced to supply a certain percentage of your wages. So you don't get the 100% for that particular day, but you get like 70% or something. Um, so that the dad can also be more involved with taking care of the kids. So a lot of the couples use that. So usually the mom works part time, the dad will have the daddy day, so he doesn't work the full week either, and that's how we can keep everything going, keep everyone happy, take care of our mental health, and flourish.
That sounds amazing. That sounds
Yeah,
amazing. I know one of the struggles that we face in America, not just with the fathers being involved in the children's life and stuff like that. One of the other things is having that work life balance,
yeah,
um, and that's something that I've seen everybody struggle with across the board is not knowing how to balance, your priorities at work with your priorities at home. People
yeah,
go and they work 13, 14 hours a day, and
mm,
then they come home and there's no productivity at home, and then
yeah.
they just go back and it feels like we've created this machine that
Mm.
benefits one area and then lacks in the rest of them. And
Mm.
so life in Netherlands sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, we don't believe in overtime. So overtime is paid extra. So depending on what branch you're in, because we have collective agreements across the board. So like the travel industry have this set of rules, and the uh, people who work on assembly lines have a different collective agreement. So depending on what branch you're in, or you're a baker or a butcher or whatever, um, so if you work more hours than you're supposed to, you'll get something like 50% extra. So employers don't want you to work overtime, because then they'll have to pay you extra on top of your regular wage. So we feel if you cannot do your job in 8 hours, that means either you're lacking in productivity and we need to give you time management training, or help you to get the job done, or it means that there's just not enough staff and they'll just hire someone to help you take care of your job load.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah.
Now, before we get into it, if there was one place in all the Netherlands that you were like, okay, as an American, as a tourist, that you could travel to, and it was like one of the best places, where would it be, and why?
Oh, that really depends on what you're into, because like Rotterdam got bombed very heavily during the Second World War. So it's very modern, because everything had to be rebuilt after the war. So a lot of architects flocked to that place. And it also has one of the biggest ports in the world. So it's a big hub for both industry and especially designers and architects, but more like industrial designers. So if you're into that, you should go to Rotterdam, and then The Hague. It's like it has the World Court.
Hmm.
Um, so, and also that's where all the embassies are. So it's also a completely different vibe. And then of course Amsterdam is very traditional with the houses and the canals. So that's nice. But yeah, I mean, there's so much to see. We have forests, we have islands. Unfortunately, no mountains. Everything's flat. That's why everyone's always cycling. So be careful with all of the bikes, because they will kill you. But yeah, I mean, there's so much to see. I don't know where to start.
Yeah, I mean, I have friends that have gone to Amsterdam, and they've said that it's very cultured in the arts, and
But
so
yeah, there's a lot of museums, art museums.
Yeah, I appreciate art because it shows the spark of creativity, right? And it shows that fire that we all have inside of us. That we just have to unlock it, and and so I think that would be pretty cool to see. I've seen some pictures. Like I said, some of my friends have gone and they've showed pictures. I'm just like, that is astounding. It's beautiful, and I would like to go.
Oh,
I think
you
it would.
totally should. I mean, The Night Watchman by Rembrandt, it's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
Actually, the original painting was supposed to be bigger than what they have at the Rijksmuseum, but apparently one person was like, "Oh, I want to put it here, but it doesn't quite fit. Let's just chop off this part." So
What?
the original painting was actually bigger, and you cannot imagine that people would actually do that. But apparently, Dutch people are anything but pragmatic. So
That's that's awesome. I know that there's a lot of like misconceptions and stuff when it comes to traveling. I haven't heard anything from the Netherlands or Europe like misconceptions, um, but living in Alaska, everyone's like, "Oh my goodness, it always is snowing, isn't it?" No, no. I mean, we have 80-degree summers, and
I
the
have no
sun's
idea what
shining.
that means.
So 80 degrees in America is pretty warm. Like,
Okay, so we're centigrade. So what?
yeah. You guys are centigrade. We're Fahrenheit, and like so like the 80-degree weather is like perfect for a lot of people because it's almost like a tropical climate, and the sun is shining. It's very beautiful, but in those winter months, it's very dismal, which is where we
Yeah,
hit
a
the.
lot of darkness, right?
So yep, that's kind of one of them. And we're actually starting to get into the time where we have more darkness than we do light. And so people really like see movies or they'll run from stories that they heard and they'll say, "Oh, you guys have like 30 days of darkness." Well, no, I live in Anchorage, and Anchorage we have about 18 hours of daylight, or sorry, 18 hours of darkness in the winter, and in the summer we have 18 hours of daylight, and and it does take a hit on the mental health a little bit with
Same
seasonal
as-
depression.
Yeah, Scandinavia is probably the same. I mean, I know a lot of people will go to Sweden or Norway in the summer because you have like 24-hour light during summer, and there
Mm.
also in winter it's like maybe 5 6 hours of daylight.
Yeah, I know all about that.
Oh, okay, okay.
But okay, let's get into it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about some stuff. So, uh, you you grew up and you told me prior to the show that your father was an addict. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Oh, yeah, yeah, sure. I mean, well, basically, when my dad was 13 years old, his parents split up, and neither of his parents wanted to take care of him anymore. So he was raised by his grandparents. And then when those passed away, he went back to live with his mom. His mom, out of desperation, married another guy and had a kid with that guy. So the second husband.
Hmm.
And I heard later that the only reason she picked him because of financial security. So she had a daughter with that guy, and then she had her son, which is my father, and then she got married again with another guy, third guy, and also had kids with that guy. So she had kids by three different husbands, and so it wasn't really stable family life for my dad growing up, and I'm sure he must have felt unwanted being 13 and both of your parents saying, yeah, sorry, but I'm not going to take care of you, and then out of necessity you ending up with your grandparents because otherwise you probably would have gone into foster care. So I'm sure he had a lot to deal with. So he got married, I don't know exactly at what age, and had a son. And then he got divorced from that woman and met my mom. My mom was suffering from mental health issues. She uh, was in the stages of developing schizophrenia. And my dad introduced her to drugs. So, probably due to the drugs, her symptoms were aggravated. And then she developed full blown schizophrenia, and she became very paranoid and didn't want to take any medicine. So, at one point, my aunt, who is the sister of my mom, told me that she went to this abandoned building and she found my mom uh, really skinny and not taking care of herself and just looking like a hobo. And so she took her out of the house and tried to fix her up and everything. But in any case, so then when my mom was, what age was she? I think around 30 or something, she became pregnant with me. uh, the my half brother, the son from the other marriage, was raised by his mom, so he was never in the picture. And yeah, so my parents got married, and then my mom got pregnant with me, and I don't think she really realized what was going on because I was actually um, born inside a bathroom. So she felt all these things going on inside her body, and she thought, "Oh, I feel like I might have to go to the bathroom." And fortunately, around that time, there was this social worker or nurse type person who would come around quite often to check in on her, to see how things were going. And so she found my mom and me inside the bathroom, and I was actually born 6 weeks prematurely. So this lady arranged for an ambulance to take us to the hospital. They put me into incubator for 6 weeks, and my mom went to a special closed ward for people with mental issues. And yeah, so after 6 weeks, I was ready to be released. My mom, I don't know exactly how long she stayed in the hospital, but her family, her parents decided that she should go to a closed institution. So, like a place for people with mental health issues where you're just locked in and cannot go anywhere. So she went there, and then her parents decided to put me in an orphanage because they didn't want to take care of me. They felt they were too old, and uh, they felt that my father's family was not a good fit to take care of me. So there was a court case, and the family of my father tried to get custody over me, and mm, the parents of my mom decided, like, no, we're not going to do that. And apparently the judge said, okay, fine, we'll just put her in an orphanage then. So I was there for almost a year, and then my adoptive family, who already had 3 sons, were introduced to the orphanage by a friend. So my adoptive mom, she used to be a cleaner, and she would go to people's houses and clean. Um, so one of the people that she cleaned for, she told her about her struggles, like, oh, I have 3 sons, and she had a hysterectomy, so she couldn't have any more children. And she was like, yeah, that was always my dream to have a little girl, blah blah blah. And then this lady whom she worked for, she was doing a PhD on something to do with kids and adoption and foster care and orphanages. I don't know the
Yeah.
exact details, but in any case, she said, "Oh, I know this orphanage, and they have kids, so I can hook you up." So I can introduce you, and then you can just pick one. So basically, I was there in this room with like 12 other kids, and they were like, "Yeah, that one, that one." And they were like, "Yeah, yeah, sure, fine. We'll make it happen." Um, so yeah, then there was this other social worker that they arranged through the orphanage that came around to my adoptive family's home a couple of times, and they were like, "Yeah, let's see, let's do foster care first, and let's see if she is this is a safe environment for her, blah blah blah." And then maybe 2 months in, they were like, "Yeah, I think we can leave her here." And uh, my adoptive family were allowed to pick me up from the orphanage. And so my mom back then was still locked up,
Mhm.
and her mom, my grandmother, occasionally was able to visit her, my mom, and she also introduced me at some point. So for a couple of times, I still have pictures where they're walking through the park with the uh, stroller, and I'm there, and she's holding me and things like that. And then after I got adopted, my uh, grandparents from my mom's side still wanted to check up on how things were going, so they kept in touch with my adoptive parents. But my mom basically wasn't allowed to be in touch with me because of her mental health issues. And my dad, who was still an addict at the time, uh, had an accidental overdose. He was using speed, and someone told him, "Oh, you look terrible. Here's 10 guilders. Please use it to buy some food." And he actually used it to buy drugs, and he used a dose that normally would be okay, but because he was so skinny, his body couldn't handle it, and he passed away from the overdose. Um, and around that time, there was also a court case to settle the fact that my adoptive family wanted to actually adopt me because they were still only foster family.
Yeah.
So yeah, my grandparents were there, my maternal grandparents. My mom didn't show up. She was living on her own at that time, but I don't think she really understood what was going on. So, and also the parents from my dad's side, so my paternal grandparents were there. So they kind of raised the issue again, like, "Oh, we kind of like to take care of her." But then my maternal grandparents were like, "No, let her just go with these people. I think that's better." So the judge said, "Okay, fine, you go with them." So basically, that's what happened in a nutshell.
Understood. Understood. First, I want to say I'm sorry for your loss, for your father. Um, it's terrible. It's a terrible way to go, especially when you don't receive the help that you need.
Yeah.
What about what was it like a little bit later on in life for you after you grew up a little bit and you're able to comprehend, like, okay, my dad was an addict and this is what happened. What kind of things went through your mind in that aspect?
Well, basically, my adoptive parents were always like, "Yeah, both your mom and your dad were basically addicts, so you probably have this disposition. You are probably going to end up an addict too if you touch alcohol or drugs or cigarettes or any of that stuff. So we want to be very strict for your own benefit in that regard, because you probably end up just like them." So that's basically the mirror they were always holding up to me, like, "See, this is what happened to your family. You will end up the same if you just touch the stuff." So that's why I always kept very far away, like, "Oh, I mean, my half brother is an addict, my mom was an addict, my dad was an addict, so I probably shouldn't even try to experiment because it will end badly. So I
Yeah.
stayed away from all that. But yeah, it was definitely hard, also facing the fact that I was adopted, and you feel a bit like a throwaway, especially as a kid. And, I had three older brothers from my adoptive family. And basically, my youngest brother was supposed to have his 10th birthday. And a week before his birthday, my adoptive family were like, oh, yeah, we're going to pick up Nikki, but it's almost the same time as your birthday. So when is your birthday? Everyone is going to focus on the little baby, and they'll be like, oh, it's so cute. Look at the little baby. And no one's going to spend any time on you. So do you mind? And asking a 10-year-old that question and giving him that kind of responsibility, I feel is absolutely wrong. But
Yeah.
I think he probably felt pressured to say okay, because everyone, my other brothers were like, yeah, we want to see her, we want her to come,
Yeah.
please say yes, please say yes. So he said yes. And then later on, we had some issues growing up, and my other brother told me that at one point he admitted that he felt that I robbed him of his position in the family, because he was always the baby and the little prince, and everyone was like, "Oh, look at him, he's so cute." So that's the reason for the way he behaved towards me. So I definitely had difficulties growing up in this family and my position in the family, and like, are you accepted, are you not accepted, how do people, like, my, especially my grandparents from my, like, my paternal grandparents from my adoptive family,
Hmm.
they were like, this mongrel, why just throw her away, we don't want her. So every opportunity they had, if I wanted to get a hug or something, like, no, no, you're a mongrel, go away. And so that was a really hard situation to deal with. But it, at some point you just have to accept how things are and just deal with it, because it's not helping anyone if you're just are sad all the time, so you just have to take the positive and try to reshape it for yourself, and not think about the bad things in your past too much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, what is your relationship like now with your adopted parents?
They both passed away.
Okay.
So back in 2018, my mom was diagnosed with cancer. And at the same time, I was living in Tokyo back then with my then husband, and he was given an opportunity to accept a job in London. So it was a lucky chance of things coming together,
Mm-hmm.
because we hadn't planned it that way. But both my mom being terminally ill and us moving back to Europe, so that was a good happenstance. So the doctor had said that she would probably have until the end of the summer. So I came back to Netherlands, and then 3 weeks later, she died in my arms. And my dad, they were like childhood sweethearts. And he just couldn't cope with it. He just totally went to pieces, also because he really focused on her the last couple of
Yeah.
years, because she had been sick, and it was this drawn out thing where she got sick and then better and sick and better. And in any case, so he just totally broke down. And like 2 or 3 months in, uh, my husband said, oh, actually the move is off, we're not moving to Europe, so you can come back to Tokyo. So I told him like, "Oh no, I'm not going to do that. I can't. My dad is he cannot even function. So plus I have a daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I told him I'll come back to Tokyo, but you need to give me this year to put my dad back together so he can function again and I wouldn't say enjoy life, but kind of, you know,
Yeah.
keep going."
Live his life.
Yeah, and my husband was first like, "Yeah, I don't know what to think about that," but finally he agreed. So he gave me this 1 year to. So I moved in with my dad. I had this tiny room. I had this tiny one person bed that I was sharing with my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
So I was basically living in a broom closet, but it was fine because I knew it was for a year. Plus, my dad was like terrible to handle. He just couldn't cope with anything. So it was a really tough year trying to take care of him. But then I knew, like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go back to Tokyo after a year anyway. So after that year was done, it was time to say goodbye. And at the airport, my dad told me, "I'm never going to see you again." And then I was, "Oh, stop being so melodramatic. It's August. I'm coming back in December. We're going to celebrate Christmas together. It's going to be fine. Don't worry." And he said, "No, this is literally the last time we'll see each other." And I didn't take him seriously. I was like, he's just being difficult. But then 2 months later, I had to go back because he passed away. So turned out he was right. He was sick, and I didn't know, and it went really, really fast. My brother called me to say, "If you want to say goodbye, you need to book your ticket now." So
Mm-hmm.
I was still kind of debating, like, "Oh, should I do it now, or maybe you can wait until December?" So I was like, "No, I'm gonna do it now." So I booked the ticket, and like 5 minutes after that was over, literally, my brother called me and said, "Yeah, you can still come over, but you need to arrange a funeral because he's gone." So I never really got to say goodbye to him. But yeah, I had to come back, arrange a funeral, take everything out of the house, and do all that, and then go back to Tokyo. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that was a tough time.
You've dealt with a lot of loss in your life.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you had to go through that,
Mm.
especially at such a young age. That's that's
Yeah,
that's pretty rough. Um, you talked about the genetic disposition earlier. You mentioned it,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and you mentioned that prior to us recording, you said that you took a test for the genetic predisposition. What did
Yes,
that
yes.
consist of? And for anybody that doesn't know, what is that?
Yeah, basically, there's this company in Hong Kong. It's called Circle DNA, and it's not cheap. I have to admit it. But a friend of mine who also lives in Tokyo said, "Oh, they have this 2-for-1 deal." So it's not one of those DNA tests that is specifically for heritage. So they don't really look at where you're from or like who your ancestors are or anything like that. So it's not that kind of test, but it's specifically focused on medical stuff. So they look at like what kind of personality do you have, what kind of diet um, suits you best, um, what kind of drugs are you maybe can you handle or not handle, or if you need to be careful about it, uh, what kind of other predispositions do you have, like high cholesterol or high blood pressure, even mosquito bites, if you're going to be sensitive to mosquitoes or not. So it's really, really, really detailed, and even like your physical features. So they said I was probably going to have blonde hair and either blue or green eyes, which is spot on.
Wow.
And also drugs, if you're susceptible to addiction, and not just substance abuse, but also other types of addiction. And like, what kind of personality are you well equipped to face adversity? Are you more of a Do you have more of a positive mindset, or are you probably going to be one of those people that are like, oh, everything is shit? And
Mm-hmm.
so even that, they, of course, these kinds of things is with the predictability, so it's
Mm-hmm.
not 100% accurate, but it's, are you more likely or less
Yeah.
likely to be like this?
Yeah.
But yeah, they can get a lot of detail just out of a little bit of saliva. So I have this full report on all the things they tested and all the things they managed to get out of that. And I must say, it's pretty spot on. So um, for me, it was mostly to do with genetics because being adopted, I didn't really know that much about my birth family and like, are there any other issues like because of the mental health thing? Like my mom was a schizophrenic. How likely am I going to be a schizophrenic, or how likely am I going to pass that on to my future children?
Mm-hmm.
And any other diseases. So there's a huge list of maybe 30 genetic diseases, and they check even cancer and all that kind of thing. Am I going to be susceptible to these diseases? And the answer was no, I don't have any genetic diseases. So I was very happy to receive those results. But I was actually quite surprised that apparently I don't have a predisposition for addiction either. So
That's
that
awesome.
that skipped a generation.
Hey, skip generations. That's okay. Yeah, I know. We that in America we talk a lot about the genetic predisposition when it comes to addiction, and nobody really understands like the
Mm.
context of what that means. And I think that gives what the test that you took gives a good spotlight to it,
Oh yeah.
and really, not to mention that's insane how accurate they were. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. Even like they said, oh, you are most likely going to be a good dancer, and you're going to have a good sense of music, and you have an excellent taste and more than average sense of smell. I'm like, oh my god, it's amazing how detailed.
That is wild. That's pretty cool. That makes me want to do it. I just don't know that I have the money for
Yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah. It was like $600 for two
Woo!
tests. So, but it's like a lifetime thing. So
Yeah.
whenever they develop any more information, they'll just send it to you for free. So
That's awesome. That is pretty cool. That is pretty cool. That's something definitely to look into. Um, yeah, but I'm glad that you're not susceptible to any of those disorders.
yeah, for sure.
That's pretty awesome. That is pretty cool. So you had also mentioned that you kind of that you had some mental health stuff going on, and when you were in Tokyo, what happened there?
Well, basically, uh, my adoptive mom, she was a narcissist, and from a very early age, she would try to manipulate me emotionally. So what she did was pretend to be crying, and then she would blame it on me. Like, she was crying, she was emotional because I was misbehaving, and that's how she manipulated me. And then growing up, she would say something like, "You are trying to ruin my life, and you're the reason I'm not happy, and why can't you be more caring? Can't you see that what you're doing to me?" That kind of thing.
Mm,
So since I grew up with someone like that, I have always been drawn to men who also had a narcissistic personality. I mistook it for strength. But yeah, so basically, my ex husband also has a narcissistic personality, and what he did was love bombing. So basically, at the beginning of the relationship, he went really fast, and like 2 weeks in, he was like, "Oh, here's my key to my house. You can come whenever." And 2 months in, he was like, "Why don't you give up your apartment and move in with me? Put all your stuff in storage, and if it doesn't work out, we'll just arrange something. It'll be fine." So yeah, I was very much attracted to that. I thought, "Oh, this man is amazing, and he's so serious about me. I can't believe it." And also, I was 29. I thought, "Oh, maybe I won't get another opportunity like this." And I've never had a boyfriend who was so serious so early on. And they were all like, "Yeah, I'm not sure if I want to introduce you to my family," and stuff like that. So I was like, "Yeah, I have to keep this one. I shouldn't let him get away because,
Yep.
So in any case, yeah, and then that quickly started to change, and he was always trying to change me, like, "Oh, you need to be more like this. You're ugly, you're fat, you need to lose weight, you're lazy," and always try to give me the idea that, yeah, our relationship isn't going well, but it's basically all your fault because you cannot live up to my standards. So just make more of an effort, and then everything will be okay. So and because I'm very competitive and I cannot admit failure, I would always find new ways to try to get him to like me, so to speak. So yeah, so I was with him for 10 years in Tokyo and 5 years before that in Amsterdam. And then I took the year out to take care of my parents. And then I came back, and our marriage was already in shambles before I left for Netherlands. So I asked him, "What do you want to do? You want to get a divorce, or do you want to just spend a year apart? Do you want to see other people, or how are we gonna do it? Because I want some clarity." And then he told me, like, "If I find out that you're cheating on me, you're gonna get those divorce papers so fast. You're not gonna fucking believe it." So I was like, "Okay, well, fine. I will have enough on my plate taking care of my dad and my daughter. So I'm not going to see other people. Let's not do that. And when I come back to Tokyo, we're going to try and make it work." So I did that. I didn't see other people. I was just focused on my dad. And I was supposed to go back in August, and then in June I was on Apple TV and I was on his account, and I saw this line that said subscriptions, and then I thought, "Hmm, interesting. Let's see what it says." So I clicked the subscription button, and it said Tinder Gold account, 6 months. Like,
Oh.
that's interesting. So I made a screenshot and I sent it to him and said, "Can you maybe tell me more about this? I found this, and it seems that you have a Tinder account." And he said, "Oh, yeah, it's just an ego thing. I'm not using it to meet people. I just pay $60 a month just to see if people will like me." And then I was like, "I know I'm blonde, but how stupid do you think I am?"
Yeah.
So, but at that point, everything was already towards I'm going back to Tokyo. So I was like, "Okay, I don't want to pull the plug now, and then it's too troublesome. So let's just go to Tokyo and figure things out." So I was back for 1 week, and then I opened up the letterbox, and there was this note with my house key, and it said, "Oh, thank you so much for letting me stay with you. I had such a great time. I hope we can catch up again soon." I was like, "Interesting." So again, I was
Oh.
like, "Yeah, well, what's this with the key and the note?" And he was like, "Yeah, there was this girl, and their apartment was being fumigated. So I told her she could crash at my place. I wasn't there at the time. I just gave the key to this complete stranger I met in a bar," according to him.
Makes
So she could,
sense.
yeah, so she could stay in our apartment because hers was being fumigated. So that again, I was like, "Yeah, how stupid do you think I am?" So there were not a few more instances like that, like finding condoms and finding Viagra, finding lingerie that's not mine, well, stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. So 2 months in, I was like, I don't know what the hell's going on, but just cut it out.
Mm-hmm.
And do you still want to make this work? And he was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I was like, okay, just cut it out, man, and let's put some effort and try and make this work. Come on.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, 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 yeah. I'll cut it off. I'm not gonna see these women again. Yeah, I'm gonna focus on our relationship. And then COVID happened, and he was outside on the balcony, always frantically texting. So I knew something was going on because he was always hiding his phone, like, no, don't look at the screen. So
Mm-hmm.
I basically knew and let it go on for a couple of months. And then at one point, I was just sick and tired of him. And he passed out drunk one night. So I grabbed his phone, I checked his messages, and I was like, oh, okay. So 8 months this has been going on.
Mm.
So I told him when he woke up, like, I don't know where you're going to sleep tonight, but it's not going to be here. Just grab your shit and go. I don't care. And I mean, I went back to Tokyo thinking I would stay for at least another, I don't know, 10 years or something. And then 1 year in, I'm already like, okay, I'll probably go back, I guess.
Yeah.
Because no sense in staying here if the relationship isn't working. So, but because of my daughter's school, I couldn't uh, move back immediately. So I had to wait for her to finish out the school year. And then back in 2021, I literally had two bags and my daughter, no bank account, no car, no income, no nothing. And I had to move back to Amsterdam to make something of my life. So it was definitely a struggle to try and make it work.
That is a struggle.
Mm.
That's rough, and yeah, I know a lot of people. I have a really good buddy of mine named Chris, and actually, well, as you were telling your story about your husband and about your mom, your adopted mom, I went right back to him
Mm.
because his story kind of mirrors yours,
Mm.
and
Is
he
he
has.
single?
I believe he is. He lives in Florida. He's a good
Oh,
guy.
okay, Florida. That's nice.
He's a real good guy, but his
Hook me
story.
up.
I'm pretty sure he'll watch it. He watches every one of my
Okay,
episodes.
okay. If
But
you're listening.
he's a very awesome guy. But I was reminded because he's been going through struggles with his mother, and in the sense of she has uh, a huge narcissistic personality,
Mm,
and she makes everything all about her. She always
yeah,
blames him, and
yeah.
so like he's very vocal about like what happens in their in the dynamic of their relationship.
Mm,
And I just kept thinking back to him when you were saying these things, and I was like, man, there's a lot of parallels right there. But there's a huge narcissistic trait that a lot of people have, and I believe that to a degree we all have one, have a
mhm.
small sliver of a narcissistic trait.
Really, yeah.
We all do, but I don't. But in those true narcissists, I believe that trait is like blown up, like magnified. Like you put it under a magnifying glass, you blow it up, and then you put a little magic serum on it, and there you go. Um, but I'm terribly sorry that you went through all that. It's a terrible life.
Yeah, I mean,
Not terrible life, but a terrible a terrible situation to be put in. Some by choice and some not by choice.
yeah, I mean, it's been a steep learning curve, but especially coming back to Amsterdam, I did a lot of reflection and to try and figure out what just happened, because
Yeah.
since 2018, losing my mom, losing my dad, losing my marriage, and frankly, recently I also lost my daughter, kind of.
Mm.
It's not dead or anything, but my ex-husband came back to Amsterdam and he promised her like golden mountains
Of
and
course.
unicorns and rainbows and glitter every day. So she was like, "Yeah, I want to move back to Tokyo." So she's living with him and his new girlfriend right now. But yeah, so that's when I came back to Amsterdam. I really started thinking, what the f just happened here, and how did I end up in this situation, and why am I keep repeating the same patterns all over again? And it must be me because I'm like the leeching pin in all of this, and I keep meeting the same people and making the same mistakes. So how can I move forward and not do this again?
And
So
how
yeah.
did you move forward?
Well, you know, I started doing a lot of research, like, and started thinking about what was it that my husband felt the need to cheat on me so often. Because he would always be like, "Yeah, it's your fault. You're fat and you're ugly. You're not living up to my expectations. You're a lousy housewife. You're stupid. You can't do anything right." So for years I believed him and I thought, oh yeah, it must be me and I must be this terrible person. But then later I thought, yeah, it's not me. There's something in him that um, he feels the urge for that constant feedback loop. He wants that positive feedback loop. He needs other people to tell him you're amazing, you're fantastic, because he has this insecurity inside of himself. And if other people don't tell him like you are this, you're so smart and you have, I can't believe you have this amazing job and this amazing life and this wonderful apartment, you must be super smart. If he doesn't get that feedback loop, then he starts feeling bad about himself. And actually he also had problems with alcohol abuse. um, but because he was being so negative to me all the time, I couldn't really get through to him, and also I couldn't understand where this was coming from. I started to pull back more and more, which only aggravated this feeling for him, like, oh, see, she's rejecting me, so I need other people in my life to give me this feeling. So that's probably where things kind of went wrong. But yeah, in hindsight, I mean, we're just not good for each other, you know. He needs different people in his life, and I believe that it would be in his best interest to also do something about his mental health and start to understand why he feels this urge so badly to get this positive reinforcement, and how he can get that out of other things besides trying to chase women and abusing alcohol and that kind of thing. Like, on the
Yeah.
one hand, numb all the negative feelings, and the other side, always looking for people to validate him. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that should come from within, you know. If you need other
Absolutely.
things, that's just not gonna work.
Absolutely. And I always tell people that, if it's not benefiting you in that situation, like obviously there's certain situations in life that aren't going to completely benefit us one
Yeah,
bit. But if it's not benefiting you, period, and it's toxic for your life, then it's okay to leave that situation. It's okay to walk away and say,
yeah. Well, that's the
no
thing.
harm, no
It's
foul.
usually the thing is, even though it's a shitty situation and you might be on the brink, like, oh, I'm gonna kill myself or something, still you're gonna stay, because even though it's shitty, it's what you know.
Yeah.
And in a way it kind of feels comfortable because you know what to expect, you know the dynamics.
Yep.
And someone who treats you completely different, who's like, oh, you're this amazing person and I really appreciate you for who you are and I want to treat you like an equal, even though theoretically that's what you want, but it feels really alien, like,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
get
Yep.
away from me, you
Yeah.
horrible person. Why are you treating me like a normal human being? I'm not used to that. Go away.
Yeah, yeah, I've definitely vocalized that I've been comfortable in my depression because it's my cesspool of shit that I've lived in my whole life, and anything outside of that would be foreign to me, would be abnormal to me,
Yeah,
and I mean, but since then I hate the way that I feel in my depression. I absolutely despise it. So I've learned to be okay outside of that. I don't have to enjoy feeling that way. But yeah, you're absolutely correct. It's what we know, and we're creatures of habit. We run
yeah,
back to what we know,
yeah,
and until we break that cycle of insanity, we're gonna continue to fall back into that pattern.
yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. So before we end it, I would like to ask, what advice or suggestions would you give to somebody that is struggling with mental health disorders, or a family member of somebody that is struggling with through addiction? What advice or suggestions would you give them?
Well, as far as addictions go, um, it doesn't help to want to help someone. And by that, I mean, if someone is not ready to start that journey on their own, and if that person is not reaching out to you, there's no sense in you reaching out to them because they're not ready. And all it's going to achieve is that you both get aggravated, and it might even um, let them slide down even further rather than it's going to help them in their quest. So, um, people with addiction, you can bring it to their attention, like, oh, okay, here's a pamphlet, maybe you want to read it. So, you, like, in a very passive way, you can try and find things for them that might help them on their journey. But if they're not ready, it's not going to help. So they're don't reach out to them, just let them suffer in silence and try to, like, um, give them information. But as long as they're not going to decide, I'm going to tackle this issue, it's not going to help. So as that's as far as addiction. And for mental health, fortunately, here in the Netherlands, there are free mental health services. So you, because I was suffering with suicidal thoughts last summer, because my daughter was going to leave for Tokyo, and there was this point of realization. Basically, my 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 adopted family, my parents passed away, and my brothers, they kind of moved on. They were focused on their own family, so I felt very locked out. I still do, actually, but that's a whole other matter. Um, so I was like, okay, so I don't have my adopted family anymore. My birth mom and my birth dad also both passed away, and my aunt as well. So I don't have any blood relatives anymore, except for my daughter, but she was going to Tokyo. So, and I was unemployed at the time. My business was dead.
Mm,
So I was like, why am I even here? I'm just taking up space. I'm taking up air. I have no purpose in life. No one wants me. So I might as well be dead, Like, my daughter's going to move to Tokyo. She's going to have a stepmom there. So even the mother part in me was like, no reason to keep going, Like,
yeah.
yeah, she's going to have someone else taking care of her. She's not even going to see me anymore. So why even bother? So, fortunately, I had this really good friend who was like, you're going to go to your GP. So we in the Netherlands it works. You have a general practitioner, and
Hmm.
that's your first point of contact if you have any health related concerns.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna go there and you're gonna tell your story, and just tell it like it is, and that's it. That's the only thing you need to do, and just see how they respond, and let's take it from there. So she kept bugging me, and I was like, okay, okay, I'll go, I'll go. So I went there and I told the GP, like, oh yeah, I feel like committing suicide, and he's asking what you plan on doing, and how, what level are you? Are you only thinking about it? Do you have the
Mm-hmm.
tools to
Yeah.
do it or not? And like, yeah, 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 is everything ready? I'm just contemplating because of my daughter. I might be like, oh, maybe things won't work out in Tokyo. So that's the only thread I have left. And so he said, okay, I'm going to connect you to the suicide center in the Netherlands. And they physically came around to my house, knocking on the window and ringing the doorbell. And I couldn't even leave my bed. I was just locked inside my bedroom, looking like a hobo, not eating, not taking care of myself. And I said, oh, just go away. Leave me
Yeah.
alone. But little by little, they gave me the help I need. They gave me some medicine, and the medicine made me feel better. And because I felt better, I was better able to sleep. I was able to cope with more and more and more, and I was able to find another job. So at least I had some steady stream of income. So slowly, I started to get out from that hole. But yeah, that was a really big struggle to get back on my feet and to regain that inner strength. And my life has always been focused on other people. I always did things for others. That's how I got my gratification. So even with my daughter, I was always thinking, how can I make her happy? What kind of food will she like? What can I buy for her? And suddenly there was no one there. It was either my mom, or it was my husband, or it was my daughter. And I never really thought about, what does Nikki want? What does Nikki need? And that was very confrontational, and was really like, but I cannot want anything. I'm not supposed to want anything. My life is not supposed to be about me. I cannot take up any space. If I'm being selfish, if I do anything for myself. And then slowly, slowly, I started to even just contemplate, like, what would I like to eat tonight? Just
Yeah.
for me. And these slow steps slowly got me thinking, like, yeah, maybe I want this tonight, or maybe I want to do that. And yeah, slowly starting to regain myself, and to find out who is Nikki, what does Nikki want, and what can we do to, what are your dreams, and what are your aspirations, and what does Nikki want to get out of life, just separate from the whole family and daughter and stuff like that. What do I want? So that really helped me to regain my focus and to get out of the depression.
Absolutely. That's amazing. And I think when we come to that realization that, like, I need to identify myself as a person, identify what I enjoy to do, because I'm separate from other people. You know,
Yeah.
I'm separate. You know, I have these titles that are granted to me: wife, mother, coworker, worker, whatever. Um,
Mhm.
when we start to separate that away from our identity, we start to see who we are at the core. And when we start to
Yeah.
lack those things, it's good for us to identify who we are, and to base it. I mean, like you, I got gratification from helping other people, and I enjoy that, and I still do. But I had to recently start to look into what I enjoy doing, and
Yeah.
and who I am. I had a friend send me a whole axe from Switzerland, and he was like, "Do the handle," and I just did. I cut myself last night on
Oh
working
my
on the
god.
handle. It's a Viking axe, but I enjoyed doing it. It was very therapeutic for me. I play drums, I play guitar, do all these other things, and that's an identity, a layer of who I am. And I'm glad that you're getting to that point where you're able to look and say, who am I, and what do I enjoy doing,
Yeah.
and what do I not enjoy doing.
Mm-hmm.
And another big thing a lot of people don't realize is sleep. It does a lot more for your body than just I'm tired and I need to relax.
Mm.
Sleep repairs your brain. Sleep repairs your body. Sleep can actually lessen some of those mental health crises that we're going through sometimes. Um, if people aren't getting a lack of sleep and they're not sleeping well, then it can really play a long lasting factor on a lot of things. That's why when people don't sleep well and they suffer from they when they suffer from I can't think of the disorder where
Anxiety.
you well, no, it's the disorder where you don't sleep.
Oh, okay. Narcolepsy or
No, that's where you fall asleep randomly. No,
uh,
no,
insomnia.
insomnia. There it is. When you suffer from insomnia, like there's accompanied mental health disorders with it.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was diagnosed with insomnia a few years ago. Not a few years ago, but probably about 5 or 6 years ago. I was diagnosed with insomnia, but partnered with that, I had so many other mental health crises that were happening in my life. Suicidal ideations being another one that I was just like, it was compounded, and I was like, if I can figure out one thing and fix it all, well, the one thing that might have been able to help was that sleep.
Oh,
So
for sure.
really,
That really helped a lot.
yeah, and I'm absolutely happy that you got that sleep thing nailed down. That's awesome.
Yeah, and also, I started working with the psychiatrist and psychologist um, at the center, and you also need to have a good click with the person who you're doing your therapy with, because there was also this one lady and she kept recommending things that were just not working for me, and it was only aggravating me more, up to the point where I was ready to throw in the towel, like, oh my god, this isn't working, this is not for me. But then another person put me back in and said, yeah, let's talk this through, and maybe we can connect you to someone else where that has a better connection with you, is better able to understand your problems. So if it's not working out, then just try with someone else, because maybe it's just your personality type's not matching. So don't give up. There's always someone else who probably is better able to understand your needs and the issues you're facing.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Nikki, I just want to take a moment and say thank you for sitting with me for just about over the hour. Thank you for
Yeah.
hanging out and being vulnerable and talk about some of the things that aren't easy to talk about.
Mm.
Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for being authentically you. That's
Yes, of course. Yeah, that's me.
all right. And everybody else for that's watching, I want to thank you guys for being here, for hanging out for this hour, and I mean it's pretty cool. I'd never imagined I'd have somebody on my show from Amsterdam. That's pretty
Yeah,
awesome. That's
let me
pretty
know if
cool.
you're in town.
Yeah, we'll do. Until next time, guys. Have a good day. Much love.